Science!
Hey guys, welcome to Science This Week. We have some really exciting developments in space exploration, so let's just jump right into it. NASA has announced its full mission plans to get us back to the moon and then eventually to Mars. This has been something that has been talked about in the last couple of years, but NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine actually held a press conference last week to explain NASA's intention to go back to the moon, then on to Mars. He said, "We will go to the moon in the next decade with innovative new technologies and systems to explore more locations across the lunar surface than ever before. This time, when we go to the moon, we will stay. We will use what we learn as we move forward to the moon to take the next giant leap, sending astronauts to Mars." Now, as exciting as this is, there is a lot to unpack from all of this. So I figured, why not? Let's just jump into some of the more pressing questions. And if you want to learn more about this, I'm going to put a link up right here from nasa.gov that details all of their mission parameters of what they have in store, of what they're trying to do, getting back to the moon, then onto Mars, and really further space exploration for humanity, which is so exciting. So, first up, why are we headed back to the moon? We haven't actually had humans on the moon since 1972, and we did, with the Apollo missions, and we just haven't been back, which many scientists agree is a misstep, and we should have been constantly checking out scientific discovery on the moon since then, and we just haven't done it because of funding, because of other different things. But why are we going back? There's many different reasons. I have two really short sizzle reels, actually, from NASA that give you an idea of why we're headed there. It's exciting. It's exciting to think that we're finally making plans to do this. This has been something that has been talked about for decades now. When are we going to go back? How are we going to go back? Will we ever become the spacefaring society that we all dream in our science fiction imagination? Will that actually happen? And putting these things in place, it's going to happen now. And it's exciting to hear NASA and private and commercial companies all coming together to make this a reality. We need to start somewhere. The moon is the best place to start because we can use it as a stepping stone to get to our solar system. You've probably heard on previous science segments, I was talking about how it takes so much thrust and fuel to get out of our atmosphere. That is the biggest part of the journey just to get to the moon. So if we're talking about going to Mars or Jupiter or anywhere else in the solar system, the amount of fuel is unimaginable to be able to get to these places. But if we head there from the moon, it'll be a lot easier. And so that's a huge reason of why we're going to go back there. Also, this can be an inspiration for generations to come. Those Apollo missions back in the day, they inspired the people who are working with NASA and SpaceX and all of these companies right now. And by doing it again, we're going to inspire future generations to help us all become this incredible interplanetary society. It's fun to say that out loud, but we are working towards that. It's incredible even to talk about how people are excited about space exploration. You guys are tuning into this segment. I know you guys are excited about it, but it's not even that. It's you can walk down the street anywhere in America and see people rocking a NASA hoodie or a NASA hat and or SpaceX or, with quotes from Neil deGrasse Tyson or Carl Sagan or Bill Nye on their T-shirts. It's really exciting that people are excited about science and space exploration again, and we're living in that age. And speaking of science, the science and knowledge we can actually gain from having an extended presence on the moon is actually quite vast. What we have learned from the samples we gained from the Apollo missions is still being unpacked, even today. And having a human and robotic presence on the lunar surface will allow us to expand our knowledge of the moon, the origins of the Earth, and even the solar system at large. The moon will not only act as a way station, this better way to get to Mars and beyond, but will also be a test bed for the many processes and technologies that we're developing once we want to get to Mars. So the stuff that we're developing and thinking, okay, we could sustain a human colony on Mars, we can actually test these things on the moon and refine them and reshape them and make them reusable so we can actually even take them from the moon to Mars. NASA is looking right now to partner with private and commercial companies to make this all become a reality. In doing so, this will make our mission to the moon and Mars a unifying human achievement. And it will also usher in the next wave of economic growth, a vast economy built in space. And that's incredible in and of itself to think about, because the economy of just getting to space has grown exponentially in the last decade even. Now with private companies being able to do it, SpaceX, Blue Origin, also China, India, Japan, Russia, Germany, Switzerland, all of these countries getting on board, actually sinking money into creating these types of things. But that is still the Earth-based economy. We're going to be creating a brand new economy in space. And this can be great. It can also be kind of scary and terrible. Mining economy, tourism economy, scientific research, and even waste management are all going to be created out there, because we're going to need somebody to clean up all the junk that's flying around out there, and that'll be a whole industry in and of itself. But this can quickly devolve into a Wild West scenario. And we need to be looking ahead at reimagining what we can actually do in space as a human species and have these laws and practices in place so it doesn't devolve into this lawlessness of space exploration. A while back, we actually had famed astrophysicist Dr. Michio Kaku on our podcast, and I asked him these questions, and he had this to say about what it's going to be like as we further space exploration.
Well, eventually we're going to have treaties signed. Today we have the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed, 60 or so years ago, and it's way out of date because, of course, they never visualized the commercialization of space. For example, there's a group called Lunar Express that wants to begin the process of mining the moon. They've already gotten permission from NASA to do it. They want to mine, for example, ice, which is very precious on the moon. But then the question is, who owns the moon? There's no treaty that governs this. The Outer Space Treaty is very vague, and it basically talks about nations. It doesn't talk about private individuals who stake a claim to the moon. For example, Elon Musk has a moon rocket paid for by Elon Musk. He could go to the moon next year if he felt like it. The Dragon capsule is capable of going to the moon. And if he puts a stake in the moon and claims property, is it really his property? Well, it's a gray area because the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 does not really address private individuals staking out claim to the moon, because back then it was impossible. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that a private individual could fund a moon rocket on his own? That was impossible back in 1967. So new laws are going to have to be written so that we can clean up the mess of so many rockets going up because prices are dropping.
Wow. Well, it sounds like that should happen now. Is this something that we're working on currently?
No, because, of course, we're still in the era of the 1960s mentally. We have to readjust our gears. We have to think that, wow, we're in a new era where space travel is not going to be so expensive. The Chinese, the Indians, they've all announced that they want to go to the moon, too. We're going to have a lot of space junk, and there are no treaties to regulate this process. So I think that nations should get together to sit down to work out the laws, because we could have a traffic jam over Mars. You realize that there are 3 groups fielding rockets now: NASA, Elon Musk, SpaceX, and Jeff Bezos of Amazon. The richest man in the world has funded a private spaceport in Texas. He has his own fleet of rockets.
Whoa.
And so we have 3 groups fielding rockets eventually capable of going to the moon.
Pretty cool stuff, and wise words from a very wise man. And NASA's already starting to work towards this. They have enacted something called Space Policy Directive Number 1, and this is to ensure direction to organize a more efficient government, commercial, and international efforts to develop a permanent presence off Earth that generates these new markets and new opportunities. But the next question we obviously get to is, how the hell is all of this going to work? How are we actually going to get humans back to the moon and then eventually to Mars? Now, you've heard on this very show, we've been talking about SpaceX's advancements with their Crew Dragon. And the Crew Dragon is an amazing reusable spacecraft that is going to transport humans back to space from American soil for the first time since the space shuttle. NASA has been working on 3 different things: the SLS rocket, the Gateway, and the Orion spacecraft. NASA's SLS, or Space Launch System rocket, is a powerful advanced rocket for this brand new era of space exploration. This is the only rocket that will be able to carry the Orion spacecraft with up to 4 humans inside and a giant payload, including robotic experiments and more, to the moon and even to deep space. Not only will we be able to get humanity to the moon on this, but we'll also be able to take robotic experiments to Jupiter, to Saturn, and beyond, which is incredible. We've only been able to send out, satellites to some of these, and to be able to send out even more scientific equipment is going to advance our knowledge of our solar system in incredible ways. I can't even fathom it. The initial payload of the SLS is 26 metric tons. That's around 57,000 pounds. And then as soon as we test that, we're actually working on its next upgrade. And the next upgrade will allow it to take up to 45 metric tons, which is 99,000 pounds. That's incredible. And this rocket is giant. It stands 322 feet tall, which is taller than the Statue of Liberty, and it will generate 15% more thrust than the Saturn V rocket did. And the Saturn V rocket was the main rocket that launched the Apollo missions into space and to the moon. The Orion spacecraft, like I said, will be able to take up to 4 astronauts on prolonged space missions, including going to the moon, and docking with the Gateway. The newest technologies available will be integrated into this spacecraft, making it one of the most highly advanced space exploration vehicles humanity has ever created. And Exploration Mission 1 will happen in 2020, with an unmanned launch of the Orion on top of the SLS for an extended 3-week mission that will actually go thousands of miles beyond the moon to test it in every way imaginable. Now, we're also talking about the Gateway, and the Gateway is going to be an orbiting spaceship. Think of an orbiting base, a space station that is going to be built by NASA and private and commercial partners. It is being currently developed right now. This spaceship will orbit the moon and allow astronauts to perform science experiments on it and also have access to and from the lunar surface. This new era of space exploration requires new tech and sustainable energy and reusable structures to ensure success. So one of the things that's being integrated into the Gateway is this brand new propulsion called solar electric propulsion. And the first power and propulsion elements for Gateway will be launched in 2022. And between now and then, we're going to be building this brand new spaceship to orbit the moon. This new and reusable power, this solar electric propulsion, will actually allow orbit transfers and reusable space tugs to go to and from the lunar surface. Think about like a tugboat. We'll literally be able to be on this Gateway and take a taxi to the moon and then back for prolonged stays on the lunar surface. Future astronauts will stay on the moon longer than ever before, allowing for much more science and exploration. And this is going to be in part because of the science that we're bringing, the science we're going to learn, and the technology that we're creating right now. And I have a couple videos from NASA to show you just what I mean by all of this incredible stuff. So incredible that we're here. This is what we're really working on as humanity, and it's incredibly exciting to me. We'll be sending robots and rovers first to establish power outposts, and then with human presence, we will be able to print, manufacture, and build as much as we can with the materials on the moon. When I went down to NASA at Kennedy Space Center last year, I actually got to see some of this stuff firsthand. I saw a rover whose wheels are actually almost like mouths being able to chew into the lunar surface and the Mars surface as well, and being able to take the nutrients like water and other elements out of the soil and convert them into energy. And the idea is to have rovers like this on the surface of the moon or Mars and have them partner up with power outposts, and we'll actually be able to create and store power on these surfaces before we ever get there. So when we send a rocket, it won't be one way. That rocket will be able to be refueled and sent back to Earth, which is incredible. Another thing I saw was they're working with the military on 3D printing directly from the lunar soil. And they're being able to make it into a material that's actually stronger than concrete. So again, we won't actually have to launch these building materials from Earth to the moon, which would take incredible amounts of fuel. We can actually just build these structures from the materials that the moon is made of. That's mind-blowing. That's science fiction come to life. So cool. So really quickly, here's a timeline of what we're looking at. Next year, in 2020, the first Orion spacecraft mission will happen. This will be the unmanned mission that will go past the moon and test everything about the SLS and also the Orion spacecraft. Then in 2022, the first elements of Gateway will be launched, along with the first manned Orion mission to orbit the moon. These people will not actually land on the surface, but they will orbit the moon just like the early Apollo missions. In 2023, the first launch of the first rovers to the moon, just to evaluate what we can do with the water ice that's on the surface and start to build reusable energy outposts. And then by 2024, we will see the next Orion missions with crews that will actually be going to the Gateway. Because remember, in the behind the scenes, we're building this Gateway spacecraft the entire time. By 2026, we will begin testing unmanned lunar landers from Gateway to the surface of the moon. And then by 2028, the first humans will start to go to the lunar surface for a week or more at a time, going back and forth from Gateway to the moon. And this all culminates by, hopefully by 2030, we will be looking at doing the same processes only from the moon to Mars, and being able to use everything we've learned from being on the moon. And that is really, really exciting. And that's all because of all of these companies working hand in hand with NASA, who has helped us get to this point. And here's a really good video that kind of looks back at everything NASA has helped us achieve up until this moment right here.
Ignition sequence start. All engines are up.
We have taken tremendous steps.
We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out.
We have achieved the earth-shaking, the breathtaking, the groundbreaking,
One small step for man,
and left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible.
The dawn of Orion.
It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this calling. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.